And I wonder if we could sit, does anybody mind moving closer so we can actually hear each other?
Now that we're not needing to be so
Not everybody, I
distanced.
mean, if you need distance, then you need distance, but
Can I move
I can't
outside?
Social distance,
I don't know if I see you.
A long time you've been hanging out chatting, Chris.
thank you for that.
well, I'm hoping it's better.
Is this yours?
Okay, first order of business, let me report is that Andrew Cushing won't make the meeting tonight, and Sue Smith has resigned her position, so she won't be making any more meetings. So,
Wow.
so tonight it's myself and Susan Feinberg. So the first order of business is the minutes from the last meeting, and thankfully Susan has volunteered, is that the right way to put it, to take even minutes tonight. And you've reviewed these. Do you have any more comments?
I sent you a couple of minor wording
No,
changes
I've accepted them all.
and fixed the formatting, so
I
I move
think-
we accept as corrected.
As corrected, and I'll second that. And therefore it's unanimous, there's only two. Maybe we could have a split vote, that'd be interesting. The formatting problem, I wonder if it's like composed in pages, converted to Word, and then sent it.
It
I wonder
happens
if
every
that's-
time.
Yeah, I know, because you're correcting it every time. So I think that's it. Okay. That's the first order of business. Second order of business is just the update on the tree removal, which I believe has been completed. It looks really nice.
Yeah, he did an awesome job.
Yeah, it looks great. Then there was discussion about a garden. Where are we with the garden? I mean, I think where the tree was, is that the idea?
Well, I think we had thought more to soften the look of the ramp and around that bench, to focus in that area and let the grass grow where it was
Okay, so
planted.
they're separated. The garden is separate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It-
fine.
We don't want to undo what somebody did.
No,
But
I
it's
didn't
just
know.
bare dirt there, and
Right.
that's the proposal I gave.
Yeah, and once that area is all cleaned up with the grass cut and everything, with the hay off of it, you know, that's a good place for the bike rack and stuff like
Right, I didn't
that.
want to dig that up and leave it, you know.
Next item is the update on building maintenance. We had an agreement with Steve Gorgosky to install a gutter and to correct the threshold on the door. And those projects are complete. I think we're happy with them, aren't you? I mean, I thought they were pretty
Just have
nice.
to push the door and latch it.
He's going to address that. He's going to come see you about it.
Okay.
I have an idea, it's a matter of height. There's a thing on the top that you kind of evidently put up, but you have to be tall enough to reach it.
Yeah.
So that might be the reason.
You're fired.
So the threshold is fixed, but the door needs some modification? Is that
It
what you're
doesn't
saying?
want to close on the top.
Okay.
Isn't that right? It's almost like a little warp. You know how a warp door would be? It's a little like that, right?
I mean, I haven't investigated, all I know is that you do have to push it
You
just
have
to
to-
make sure that.
To get it to catch. Yeah. He said he knows and he'll be back. We've also talked about, continuing with building maintenance, we've talked about the need to replace the roof and seal the ceiling in the portico. He hasn't put the bid together, but he thinks he's going to bid. Roof repair and replacement will run, he thinks, somewhere in the area of $12K.
Woo!
Yeah. Evidently, you can no longer just put shingles on boards, so part of the job would be to put all plywood.
So for
That
the-
adds to the expense.
So the minutes, the roof repair will run around 12,000,
That
and
was-
what was the bid we're still awaiting?
We're waiting any bids, we have no bids. He just told me, for information purposes, I'm sharing that it might run as much as,
So the remaining work, we're still looking at.
and there's more. Those are the next ones on the priority list. I had in here as the next item, the signing of the MOU impression, maybe mistakenly, that the last time we met, we had inputs from two sources, the town attorney and I guess Lori Fisher, and we had a new version of an MOU. I thought at the conclusion of some review that we were only going to spend time focusing on two of the several articles. This morning I got some feedback that questions the essence of the agreement in its basic sense. And I've had other feedback from one of the Andrew, about the need for an MOU altogether. So, given that Elena is not here, although I recognize we have a rep, my suggestion is that we postpone any more discussion about this MOU until we have a chance to maybe have a special meeting, but somehow we have to have a discussion with Fogel and the trustees about, in my mind, the issue is roles and responsibilities. That's the bottom line issue. So, do you agree with that, since it's only you and me?
That we should postpone until we can have that
A
discussion.
full attendance.
Yes.
Any comments at this point? No comments? Yes, ma'am.
As you said, at the last meeting, it was agreed there was only two things that needed to be revised. One of them sort of dealt with the 60-day to the select board in the order of when that would go to the
Right.
select board, coming to the trustees first, and then going
Right.
to the trustees going to the select board.
Right.
And then the other thing that Vogel was questioning was the last item dealing with they had to disband, the money would be going back to the town in some form, and that was supposed to be decided at the Vogel meeting on the 5th, and got them back there, so I don't understand why you're wavering with these questions going back and forth when the board, when it was whole, had made a decision that they would sign it today.
Given we came to that agreement, unfortunately, getting feedback that's much more thorough than two items.
But wasn't that the
Fundamental
problem before
issues.
with the, George, with the
Say what?
wasn't that the problem before with the memo of understanding where you initially had something and Vogel disagreed with it and then it got all thrown out and started all over again? And that's why I went to the town attorney and that's why Lori Fisher got involved.
Yes, and so we've been on, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. I thought we were on what I thought was a positive track progressing down a road of partnership with clearly understood rules and responsibilities. And that included the trustees had to come up, step up to the plate more than the trustees have in the past, from what I can determine. And so that's come to an end at the moment. I'm not sure where we are, quite frankly. I mean, there's some fundamental questions like what's the nature of Fogel and what's the
Right.
purpose of its, and what is the purpose of the funds that it raises, for example. But I don't want to get us off with not a full house to
Sure.
discuss that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, do you guys have to have a quorum to have a meeting?
I'm sorry,
Do you have to have a quorum?
we have a quorum. It's two of three.
So is it possible to consider a mediator? Because it seems like this has been going on for a long time.
It has too long,
Too long.
really, there are just 2 points that I think could be resolved, but
Wow.
to resolve pretty easily, but to resolve them without the person who raised the chair of Fogel in the room, seems like, have we waited this long, let's do it in good faith with that person in the room. Because I have some suggestions for how to
And they were
resolve
good.
that,
And they were good.
that were not too much, but I feel uncomfortable suggesting them and moving ahead without the chair of Fogel in the room.
And then there's another one that is less likely to be easily resolved.
And if that's the case, that if the questions that are raised are difficult to resolve, might you consider having
I
somebody
think we can,
mediate?
absolutely.
Oh.
We can consider it. It throws into question a number of things. Moving right along. Plan
I'll
redirection.
put that in the minutes.
Yes, thank you for the comment. So can maybe
Maybe you
decide
could
to
come up
speak a
here
little
or
louder?
turn
You
around.
have the soundboards.
Maybe a megaphone?
Yell more.
I think just turning around or sitting here.
Yeah, that would
When
go
I was
up there and
sitting
sit.
behind you, I could not hear you
Yeah,
at all.
I have a hard time hearing you and you're right there.
I mean,
Get at the head cheese table.
thank you.
Yeah, have a chair, good.
Okay. So we had 132 total patron visits in the month of May. 159 checkouts, 65 checkouts through Overdrive. We lent out 7 books through the ILL and borrowed 27. There were 26 hours of computer use time. And we got 916 books donated and 71 DVDs.
That was
Yeah.
fun.
So our staff and volunteer efforts this month were mostly processing and adding some of those donations into our catalog. Let's see, and then I request $35 to do a Beads for Books program.
A what?
Beads for books. They earn beads on a necklace for time they spend reading over the summer. Like a summer reading program.
Beads, like trinkets, beads.
Little,
Beads,
little
yeah.
pony beads.
Okay.
Is that just for children or does it include adults also?
Gretchen, you can learn how to
That's money going.
I want my beads.
Okay. Let's see. Oh wait, can I get that? Can I have that approved? $35.
So I moved that.
I'm sorry. Say
She
that-
wants $35 to fund the Beads for Books program. It's a summer reading
Okay,
program.
that's bullet number 1 here, right? And further on, you want, is it another $50 for these flower beds?
So that's,
So there's 2 requests in here.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now the problem for me is our financial person's not here.
Right.
So I'm not exactly sure, I didn't bring that, what to tell you on that.
Right.
Well,
So I'm gonna just say, can you, what happens if somebody donate, you must know, if somebody, there's a request for funds, can't an individual fund this?
Absolutely.
How
Anybody can
does-
fund
But
it.
how does it go on the books?
You would have to.
You guys have to accept the donation like any
You
donation.
have to accept it at a meeting.
And then it's on the books as unanticipated funds.
Okay,
well,
so I'm gonna move that we accept both of these requests. So that would be for a sum of $85.
Well, explain what the $50 for the garden is.
Oh, I jumped, sorry. First paragraph, the last paragraph. Do you want to explain?
Soil amendments, compost and things like that.
I've got plenty of mama poo.
if you, yeah, that will work.
I've hauled it
If you have
before.
plenty of compost. I just don't want us to put the effort into building a garden into poor souls.
Exactly, well, that's why with the front of the town office building, I put tons of mama poo in it, and I think the only thing that you might need to get is a bale of peat moss.
About
And that's
$10.
basically it,
Okay.
exactly right.
Yeah, so,
So-
but this would be a budget, you don't have to spend it,
Right.
but it's an allowance, that's how I look at it. So to me, it's an allowance to give Kate the authority to spend $85 for these 2 projects. Do you agree? So is that a motion? I move that we grant the budget request for $35 for chains and beads and $50 for the flower bed development.
Can you just tell us what this Beads for Books, can you elaborate more on what this is?
So, okay, I'm just going to make a log sheet for kids or adults.
Well, Gretchen.
I think I'm gonna do it in 20-minute increments of time spent reading, and then they can earn a bead for each of those little increments, and they can collect the beads on the chain. So we'll give them a chain and then a log sheet.
Okay, so I'm just curious, I raised 1 boy and 2 girls. I could see the girls being all about this, and the boy going, I to read, and he's the one that I needed to encourage to read in the first place. Just curious, if you think that there might be
In
some
our
thirds.
today's society,
That's what I'm wondering, is it has this changed?
we should not
Do you
differ.
think that there is more interest in boys? Is this gonna be a universal thing?
The boy children that I personally know, like my daughter's friends, would be interested in that.
Good to know. Times have changed, I understand.
Well, they make like these friendship things and
Yeah,
Sure,
stuff like that.
and some beads, they don't have to be pretty diamonds.
Sure,
They can be,
Sure.
you know,
Right.
little,
Yeah.
you know,
A
guns,
zebra stripe, zebra stripe or some sort.
little
Yeah.
pistols or
Yeah.
something.
Okay, yeah.
Any other question on this? No? Anything else you want to add
To the,
to your immediate report?
She wants to talk about the grant.
I've still got more.
I know we have more.
Oh.
One of the items is a Volunteer of the Year award,
We can't do that
which we
tonight.
can't do tonight. The awardee is not present. So that gets postponed. And then there is a grant proposal, and would you like to then discuss it too?
Yeah, okay, I put that into the budget, but, okay, so we are eligible, for $2,825 through, the ARPA through IMLS grant. After looking into all the things that we could use to fund, or use the funds for, I think our best bet is to go for a new projector, a screen, a disc cleaner, and then 14 what they call playaway launch pads, which are pre-loaded tablets that do not require the internet. The selection I picked out, there's a couple of them that are preloaded with adult games, mostly crosswords,
Brain teasers.
and things, yeah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and then the rest of them, I sprinkled kind of reading levels, and then some of them are school prep and review,
Kindergarten readiness, one of them is.
STEM, one of them STEM.
That sounds
yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Is that something that the kids can borrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
They-
just to break in, I think the point of the restriction on this grant, what one can apply for, has to do with the requirement that library computers, federally funded, and this money does come from the federal government, need to have filters so that kids and other users will safely utilize the internet. Now, we don't have that policy or those filters in place, and have been advised not to ask for any money for anything that connects to the internet, which is why Kate brilliantly researched these tablets, which are Android. They have an Android operating system, and they're preloaded with all kinds of engaging interactive stuff. And the cool thing is, interviews that we've recently done with the school district representatives affirmed a need among Grafton children for out-of-school learning enrichment and after-school learning enrichment. And since these don't require the internet, even if the child doesn't have access at home, they can check them out and play with these interactive stories and books and STEM and STEAM learning, and they look just wonderful. So I think if we advertise them properly, they're going to get good use.
Yeah. They come pre-packaged, ready for circulation with a charging cord and everything within them, so.
How many are we getting?
14.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds. Two for adults though, right?
2 for adults.
14. So
And
then
one for
you have
Gretchen.
two chance.
Do you mind if we
That's a good
tag
number,
team on
though.
this a little bit? These grants are formula grants, and so the amount we can apply for is the amount the state really wants us to apply for correctly and get, otherwise the state can't make a case for need. So if we weren't to go for this grant, it doesn't look good for Grafton, and it's not good for the state library system. So we need to ask for things that are totally within the guidelines, that we really think would be useful for the community, and we'll get it, because it's a formula grant. And even if we get something wrong in the proposal, it's in their interest to contact us to correct it, so that we indeed get them.
Yeah.
They
So that,
desperately want to get away.
well,
Yeah.
the need to give it away, and we need to use it well. And this way, we don't have to buy the cheapest projector on the market, we can get it good.
Right.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say, it was a quick turnaround time, and
I've
you
already
guys
written it.
so you guys did a really good job.
All the research.
No, you guys,
have to hand it to Kate for figuring it out.
I talked to the Enfield director yesterday, and she hadn't even started.
Yeah.
Well, Kate's
So,
fantastic.
good job.
She really worked it out, how we could do this and get what we need and also follow the guidelines.
Can I just ask, you called it the ARPA something grant?
The ARPA through IMLS.
IMLS.
American-
Because I just want to make sure, because you had brought up, Deb had brought up the other day at the selectmen's meeting about the ARPA money that's going to the towns, and there's a certain amount that you were about spot on, and I don't have the number in front of me, it's like
Supposed to be like
139,000 and some
something.
change. I just wanted to make sure this wasn't
I think it's
reduced
separate.
reduced
This
from
is
that.
separate. This is
only
completely
for library.
This is through the state library.
Yeah, gotcha, thank you.
And what else do we need to do for this?
For the grant?
We haven't submitted it, right?
No.
No, it's due tomorrow, and I've asked George if he would be willing to be the signatory on the grant as the chair of the trustees.
How do we agree?
I asked you.
That's about all it takes. I mean,
I asked you and we did the work.
I dare you to say no.
True. But does that mean you move in second? Because I'm not gonna second my own.
I move. Yeah, you second.
You can second.
I'm seconding, but it's
Being
you
the
weird to
signatory
me.
on this grant. It's appropriate
Yeah.
as
Yeah, it is
the
appropriate.
chair of the trustees.
But the board needs to affirm that authority. But I'll take it because we don't have any time. So thank you, I'll do it.
Great job.
Grafton, thanks.
Yeah.
Is that an electronic application? You
Yes.
just submit it electronically?
Yes, and it's very simple.
Okay.
So you need an electronic signature? Or
No,
just
I
a-
just need to put your name in there, and I wasn't gonna do
And then
that.
it's signed. Okay, so it assumes.
You don't even have to sign.
Signature,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Do you have
I've seen that
something?
before.
No, I just need to type your name.
Oh, that's it? Oh,
But
okay.
I'm not gonna type your name on the
I
official
need to
form
move
without
that you
being
can
officially
forge his name.
approved.
Okay. I'm converted. Next.
Okay. And then I just had a question about, so the director is responsible for materials, but do the trustees have any input on how far we should go to retrieve overdue materials?
Oh, those overdue books.
Yeah.
I don't have enough background to really comment other than to tell you when I started, that was a subject.
Yeah, okay.
And as I recall, and Stacy, I think she found it was not effective,
Yeah, okay,
if I remember correctly.
right.
Yes.
In fact, this is strange because Tuesday at the selectmen's meeting, we discussed the exact same thing when they were talking about dog license, and I was comparing it to what I was successful at doing. I mean, if it's a book like Magic Treehouse,
Right.
I'm not gonna get excited about it, you know what I mean?
It's
They're
worth
dime a
$3
dozen.
now, yeah.
But for books or, you know, I don't know what the limits are now, how many could take out. But and that sometimes it's hard to keep track of, you take them in several different times and take out different things at different times. Certain books can't be replaced, like the History of Canaan was the issue I had. And some people had a stack of stuff. So what we did was, you know, I gave them plenty of, like I did, first I called them, then I sent them a letter, then I sent them a certified letter, and then I had Russell go talk to them. And that always, that solved it almost.
Russell did that?
Yeah,
Well,
and that
that's
solved
good.
it. In fact, Russell asked me to do that.
Send
That
him
solved it
that.
almost all the time, but we had to go to court once.
Sounds like a civil matter.
Yeah. We had to go to court.
Can you repeat again what that process was? And this was for
Was-
irreplaceable items, right?
Phone call?
I made a overdue list, and I would write on it whether a phone call or an email or a Facebook, according, because some people whatever, document
First
that.
notification.
Then a letter or a postcard, and then you document that, and then certify, and then you go to Russell. And Russell handles it. And I'm very successful.
I can imagine.
So may I just ask a question? This process, you said if it was something treehouse, a kid's paperback,
Yeah,
it didn't
yeah.
bother, so was it only for irreplaceable or
It
high?
was for value, like not only irreplaceable things, but if they had a value of, $50, $60 worth of stuff. I mean, like I said, if they had a few magazines, I wasn't gonna lose sleep over it, but if they had 5 videos and 5 books and, to replace some of that stuff, then, it usually would be easily over $50, I don't know if you wanna set a limit, I wouldn't do that, I would just go with your instinct almost on that, whether it's really worth hassling somebody about.
Do you have
That's
any written policy on that?
We don't have,
No.
we don't have a policy about it right now.
As I recall,
We need some bureaucratic
that was all a
paper.
discussion with Stacy, and I felt like it ended with it wasn't worth pursuing it.
Okay, well.
But I don't,
The only thing was when we-
let's not end up there.
Are those
So I
people
would
allowed
say,
to check out more?
what do you
Huh?
recommend?
You gotta cut 'em off,
How would
right?
you like?
They're
to
not
do
allowed
it?
to check out
What
more.
makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if they're overdue, they're not allowed to check out more.
Excuse me, we're having one meeting,
Oh, sorry,
right, so
Cindy's fault.
can you do that? Is that
Yeah.
okay with you to do that?
What are you asking to do?
I'm asking Kate to consider it herself, we've seen what was done in the past, right now we're doing nothing. You are you're in the front line.
Right, so I was more looking for do the trustees want to establish a value that we feel that Russell should be contacted? Or is that just, okay.
Well, we had, but this doesn't sound like it was concrete, is that right? It was a
No,
lot of
value
judging.
wasn't concrete. I mean, value was what value you placed on it. Like, was it a real popular book that everybody wanted to take out?
It becomes
I'll deal
judgment.
with it, never mind.
Yeah.
So if you want to consider, I mean, I would I personally would back you up if you want to do that.
Yeah, if it's a James Patterson book, pay them to keep it.
Okay.
I'm gonna clean the shelves. Anything else?
Oh, COVID-19 restrictions.
Yes, can we lift all of the COVID restrictions?
Oh, my Lord. What are they doing at the state library? Do you know?
Oh, goodness. They're all kind of different right now.
Yeah, they're all
Oh, the
different.
state library.
So what do we have?
Yeah.
What do we have in place right now? What do we have?
We have staffs wearing masks, a limit of 10 people, no donations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No donations.
I think maybe because they're used and handled.
But we've been taking them.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
you just said you took in 16 books.
yeah, you're violating your own policy.
As I recall, it was put aside for a period of time.
Yeah,
and
which
then-
is
Oh, that's
generally
right,
done
they
anyway.
put
I
aside.
think that's
Okay.
what we said.
Yeah.
But since then, we've learned that transmission isn't
It's not
from
on
surfaces.
It's on surfaces,
We
so I
learned,
think
we've learned
it's-
things since then.
That, to me, that's over the top, we don't need that. Me personally, that one. What about masks?
So masks right now are please wear them. Staff must wear them. Unless you can, you don't have to wear them if you can distance.
Or what about, are you vaccinated?
I'm vaccinated, but I won't speak on this
That was a
staff
HIPAA
medical.
violation.
Oh, so you don't
Yeah.
know.
That was a HIPAA violation, George.
What was?
You just asked your employee if she had
But
order about her medical
I'm
condition.
really
Oh.
I
I
wasn't
mean,
gonna
How do you
speak
set
on
a
staff.
policy and have no data?
Yeah,
Right?
And I
That's just-
suggest what I have seen in some establishments now that state restrictions have basically been lifted. Is there are signs, pardon me?
They have, the state emergency.
I've seen signs on store doors that says, if you're vaccinated,
Yeah.
if you're, not asking, are you?
Really?
Right,
If
right,
you are
exactly,
vaccinated,
right.
feel free to come in without a mask. If you are not vaccinated, we ask that you consider wearing a mask for
Right.
safety and that.
It's not mandatory.
That's it.
It's
It's a
just-
sign on the
Right.
door, but it's something.
So can we do that? That seems reasonable.
That's what I'm seeing. Is that what other people are seeing?
But now I'm thinking about the staff.
Right.
I would also make sure that masks are still available.
Yeah.
And,
That's funny.
and the sanitizer.
Yeah.
So
But
I guess
even though
it's
nobody
the
uses
same
it.
thing about the staff. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to. If you want to or need to, you wear a mask.
Mhm.
Can we do that? I mean, if we can't ask them, which I really can't.
So, yeah, that would be just kind of a,
Or we could establish a rule, which the Supreme Court's backed up, require vaccination. How about that?
I think
That
we-
doesn't sound too good.
I mean, come on.
I would recommend an honor system
Me too.
and people being responsible for their own health.
I'm with you.
And that the sign makes it clear that there's no mandate, and if you're worried about that, perhaps you shouldn't use the
That's
library.
right.
That's
Or
what
you
I
should
think.
wear a mask
Or
yourself.
you should wear a mask yourself, but
Yeah.
I think at this
Including the
stage of the
staff in
game,
that?
huh?
Include the staff in that?
Yes, I think I would.
Then I'm okay too. So let's implement that.
So,
Oh, do we have to make a motion?
yes, I move that we create a sign at the door of the library, saying that,
I don't think that necessarily
Even
needs
that?
to be motioned and voted on. I mean, that's not a,
Well, somehow the policy was set, and now we're gonna.
that's what I would say, you
change
move to
it.
lift the policy and do this. You know, type of
okay,
thing.
I leave it till you to move.
No, they made the motion, I think we'll make the motion, I'll second it, and it's a unanimous approval. And it supersedes the other policies, right? However, I don't know how they were derived.
At a meeting, you guys did it at a meeting.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a meeting, but
We're basically going for an honor system, which will be articulated in the sign as I indicated earlier.
it sounds beautiful.
That sounds wonderful.
All right, and it's
Any
unanimous.
questions, see Paul's video.
Hey, do we have anything else?
I gotta tell you, I go back all the time when I have a few minutes, or somebody asks me about something.
what's that? Let me see. Did I get to speak on the audiobooks? So I discontinued our subscription to the Love Audio books, which is $100 a year. We don't lose our membership in the Love Cooperative, but it's just not $100 a year because no patrons want that. So, so let me give it.
No, I didn't hear you clearly at the beginning. So
Okay.
it cost $100 and you authorized that? Yeah.
So it was authorized, and I'm not moving forward with it into the next year.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, fine.
Budget cut.
okay.
I would just like to make the point that Audible books are available through Overdrive
They are
as well, so. and that
Oh,
would be
okay.
nice.
Yeah, good. They're good.
And we could also get audiobooks through ILL too, which is free.
So how do we communicate things? Like an advertising campaign about Overdrive. How do we do that? We put an article on Facebook,
Yeah, I can,
whatever this Facebook thing is.
and I can put it in the listserv as well.
So
A reminder of the
will I
services
take the
that we
action to
offer.
write a little announcement or a reminder? Or I'm finding a lot of people don't know anything about it.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, Gretchen.
After Saturday's meeting, the discussion about communication, maybe the library needs to have a newsletter besides whatever you put on, on your website. You also have a newsletter that could be available, at the town offices or the post office or somewhere where maybe you could get more information out.
The dump.
At the dump, or the little box at the dump I told you about,
Yeah.
you put a sign above it saying library newsletter, so people would actually, take that.
So that's an idea. It's a big problem.
Yeah, and what I did, I don't know if Caitlin's doing it or not. When somebody signs up for a library card, or library, whatever, you still give them a number, actually. You get their email, and you send them that information. everybody that signs up a card, you send them that information
I've been
after they
just
sign
working
up.
on
Oh,
them.
that's a good idea.
You know, so
Are you
they,
doing that?
I've been
they
just
know.
talking to them, just telling them
Talking.
what to do, yeah. But emailing is good.
Yeah.
Some of the people I'm talking about are old, long-time residents that just, I guess, not in the loop. But they read electronic books. Where do you get them from? Amazon.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, communication's always tough in this town,
Yeah, it's
anyway,
very difficult.
you know. Unless somebody wants to start a newspaper or something.
Do you have anything else, Keith?
We used to have
Are
one.
you done?
Yeah.
Good, thank you very much. It was very thorough. A lot of good ideas. The next section is devoted to the treasurer's report. We don't have a treasurer present. We did have reports distributed electronically. I didn't detect anything out of the norm. And I did not pay attention to, I just found out about the resignation just as I was on my way here.
I was gonna ask you when that took place.
So
Just
I-
minutes ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we get donations, except you had some. I think you said you had donations.
Just books, no monetary.
Books.
Yeah.
And there must be invoices, but we don't have them here. So we'll have to follow up on that. So with that in mind, I guess I'll move that we accept donations to the library. Were they videos? Did you say videos? Video donations?
71 DVDs,
DVDs,
916 books.
And how many books?
916.
900?
Yes, we've been very
Yeah, I
busy.
called them in my truck, but they were amazing.
But they were good,
They were amazing books. We're talking field guides and stuff that'll sell at the book sale.
Well, my question on that, is we got a donation, why doesn't it go on the stacks? Why is it going to the book sale?
So it just depends on if, we have the space for that kind of material, if it would actually move.
Well, we just said that it would sell at a book sale, one would think that if it sells at a book sale, it would be checked out on the, being put it for people to check out at the library.
Because we have that stuff. You know, we have the field guides, we had that.
But the duplicates, are they duplicates or are they?
Some are duplicates or they're different field guides or, you know, again, room is a issue and,
You see, I don't find room to be the issue. I mean, I was just there on Wednesday, and there
Well,
was plenty of
okay,
shelf
let's not-
space that was there.
let's- Yeah.
Let's settle down.
yeah.
We have a donation, the director makes a discretionary decision on what we put on the stacks, what we put out, and we're basing that on her knowledge of what moves, what's comparable, not how to sell things.
But it's also my understanding, besides the book sale, that the books that are donated are being sold on eBay. And who makes that determination and where does that money go to?
So that was an idea that we have. We haven't put that into any of our motion yet, so.
No, I haven't heard that at all.
I may have
It
been
was
started
an
that
email.
rumor, because I went in one day and there was a bunch of stuff stacked up on the floor and Deb was in there and they were looking stuff online and Amy told me that that was for the eBay site that apparently the town has had for years and years and years.
No, that was my personal eBay. I was racking up what that has been around for a long time. They're old books. They're not like, James Patterson. And so I was going through because if we're going to sell at a book sale, you can get a lot more money for them on eBay or possibly Amazon. But Amazon's a little tricky now. So I was just getting what we could possibly get for them, and I gave it to Caitlin to say if that's something you want to do. And again, that's it's a way to, and I always did it. I always did it when I was director. I sold them online, and you bring in a lot more money than the book sale. And I printed up the sell, sheet from Amazon or eBay, wherever I sold them. And then I even put them on for the public to buy. The Facebook Grafton items, So if you're gonna sell the books, why not get a better price?
Yes, Susan.
So, in the past, did you sell them on your own site or on the town site?
I sold them on my own site.
But you kept records and
I kept
the
records
money
and donated,
went
yeah,
to the
yeah.
library?
Or did the money go to the library, did it go to Fogo?
How, what?
Did the money go to the library, did it go
Oh,
to
absolutely, the
Fogo?
library, yeah, it has to. I mean, that's, the books are selling.
So,
It's not happening now, is that
so,
right?
right, so we were.
No, but we're not even
simply-
doing it. I was just
Okay.
giving you an idea, giving her an idea of what it could be sold for.
Possible market value.
So
I mean,
we were
we've got a book
simply
that's worth
looking
over
up the value
$100.
of the books to see if there were any that would be more lucrative to sell on eBay. But obviously, if we were going to put that process in motion, we were going to speak with the trustees.
Obviously.
So we haven't gotten there, but
Right.
we're not sure what we're gonna do,
I'm
so.
certain of that.
Okay.
And no doubt in my mind, thank you very much. This is just new news to me, I never heard of selling the town, selling.
There wasn't email, but
Well, it could have been, because I have a poor,
it's
a
okay.
blizzard of emails.
Okay, I've heard
Okay,
that.
so I have moved that we accept the donations to the library. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Second, and therefore it's a unanimous decision to accept. Next are committee reports. Fogel. I think the last time we met was before the townwide yard sale. I don't know if you wanted to announce here what the result was.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm not the treasurer and I was out of town at the time, when they had the meeting. But I believe we made $470 on the townwide yard sale,
Something like that.
something like that, and it was very successful.
In spite of the rain.
In spite of the rain, in fact, Dr. Stagen gave us all this beautiful furniture sale, and I bet you that bumped it up a couple $100. It was amazing.
So I don't mind telling you that I had some negative feedback.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Actually, I've heard a little bit myself, but,
Well,
I let it roll.
I was treated to photographs.
We've what now?
I was treated to photographs of a pile of leftover stuff.
Oh, yeah. We do that every year.
So that's a common practice every year.
Every year we leave a free pile, and then we let the people, the community, or whoever is driving by, have access to the free stuff. And you wouldn't believe the stuff that they get, because we don't want to deal with anything. I mean, you wouldn't believe the table that these people are hauling off. But anyway, so we leave it there, and the sale's on Sunday, and usually by Wednesday, anything left we clean up.
So
I've never seen that before.
It
I have
was-
never seen that mess on that.
Last year they took everything. And one year we had a guy come in and take everything before that. And there really wasn't that much stuff left, actually.
but the
It
point
was a
is-
little more obvious with the big
I
toilet
actually-
sitting in the middle.
Well, I wanted to leave the toilet there and not bring that to the jump, just to get
Why not?
everybody
Have a
entertained.
picnic table there, why not?
I was fantasizing about leaving that there and not bringing it to the dump. Just to get a rise out of everybody.
Do we have any users? Never mind.
But
I
no,
wanted
we
to bring
typically
it up
do
because
that
I
every
heard
year.
that same thing. But-
Yeah.
So this was not unusual. It did linger a little bit. But I just want to bring up that it was an example of the sensitivity that much of this town has toward what happens. So we, as an example, and I heard it again, we all agreed that the picnic table last fall, the picnic table would be removed. It's still there.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we all did, and including Elena and Fogel. But there it still is. That is an irritant. It comes across as disrespectful. I'm only sharing with you so
Okay.
we improve how we behave.
I honestly don't remember. I thought that you guys first wanted it removed, like, for the winter, and we were like, why? The other ones aren't put away.
It was requested to be removed, and we all agreed. It didn't, so that doesn't go over very well.
You mean,
Then we have a townwide yard sale, and left behind's a pile of junk. So that was received, remember, they already feel offended, and now we have that happening. So I did hear a comment, this is what it means to do business with the library people. Well, we need to watch our own act. That's all my advice is, that we learn from our mistakes and that we try to behave in a more respectful way and we'll hopefully get response in a respectful way. I just have to bring it up, I have to share it.
I
But
really seriously, honestly, don't remember being told that we had to take it away. Is there a letter about that?
it was a decision in a meeting, I don't know.
Well, I would like to see that if I
There's a letter from the
could.
select board that tells us to please not put anything there without their approval. That appeared with no approval.
Right.
And the request to have it removed was ignored. That's how it comes across to the other side of the table.
Well, I was not aware that we were asked to remove it, number one. And number
We
two,
were.
I,
We were. So, let's move along. So, what is the next event?
well, Elena was supposedly going to be working on some day camp stuff with Brittany Sykes.
That's gone. She might be doing it separate from us,
Oh, okay.
and I'll come back to that.
Okay. And so I guess the next event would be the Garlic Festival,
Great.
I-
And that's
I-
October?
October.
I thought you were having a humanities council thing.
Oh, see, I wasn't at the last meeting. I was at the last meeting, I was out of town.
The humanities council presentation?
Oh, that's right.
But-
August 7th, I think?
Yeah, there's gonna be a humanities thing, and there may even be another humanities thing, and I don't know where that's gonna take
Yeah,
place.
the second one was undetermined.
Do we know the topic of the August 2nd?
Is that the music in your pocket one?
Yes,
What's it?
music in your pocket. Yes, thank you. Oh, that's interesting.
You guys are more up on it than I am.
Okay, I'm bringing it up for a specific reason, I'll come back to you. You had a comment?
Yeah, I just want to comment on, not that it's a big deal, but I want to mention the picnic table because you were told to move that picnic table, and I remember having a discussion with you about it because you couldn't believe that you had to move it for winter. So all these items were knowledge at the time.
I'm
And
just,
it was communicated via a letter.
Oh,
That's all I want to say. I don't want to argue about it, but I just want to bring up.
I don't
is it
remember.
via a letter? Is it a letter from the selectmen?
There was a
What's-
letter that defined approval requirements for use of that lot.
Okay. Yeah, I don't wanna get into a big thing, I really don't, but,
And we don't need to keep going because
Right.
bringing it up is an
It's-
example of what creates an
Right.
environment of hostility. So with that in mind, I want to come to, and thank you, the one I'm worried about is October. What I learned, so now I'm going to talk about my experience at the select board. I went to ask permission to use that space for the ladies' camp, the girls' camp.
they can't.
And I was treated to interesting feedback. Some of it I've already indicated. Some of which is my perception, not words, necessarily words. But it was clear to me that we need to be a little more aware of courtesy. It was discourteous of me to just show up and expect an answer right there on the spot.
Was this in reference to the garlic alley?
No, I come back to garlic. No,
This
this
is
is
in
all
reference to the
about
sign.
the little
This
girls.
Sort of
is-
circling back.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up with
Yeah,
multiple
I'm
things
jumping around a
being
little
said.
bit.
Okay,
Jumping around a little bit.
and I
So-
can't hear very well. so-
And I can't either. So, many cogent items were brought up, and they were useful, they were good. The tripping point was insurance. How is this event insured? I made an assumption it was wrong. So I have learned that insurance coverage comes by way of how the money flows and to whom. So in this case,
Brittany.
Brittany, thank you, Brittany was awarded the grant. Therefore, she is responsible for the liability insurance, not the town. So what I learned was, if we want to do this next year, or something bigger, which is what I'm hoping for, that the grant needs to come from the trustees. And then the award is to the library. And once that's the case, it's town function, it's covered by insurance. Did I get that correct?
I believe so.
I would just like to, the Vogel also has event insurance.
I understand, but they're, well, they.
Right, like they could put it for the grant too, if the
Right.
trustees didn't want, if the library didn't wanna run it, I mean, that's what we do.
Well, no, I'm happy, and I did follow up. Do you have, I mean, I'm thinking of these events. There's
We
a lot of
what?
liability with these events, the events that you all hold.
Yeah, we have event liability insurance.
Right, and that's good. I'm glad you did that. But in this case, it wouldn't have helped Brittany out. I don't think. I think the same precedent's gonna be the problem. The flow of the money wasn't to Fogel. If we had a grant to Fogel, then it would likely fix it. I posed the question, I didn't hear the answer to that from Mary. That's a big deal. What,
I just want to be clear about this. So what would have been a proper way to approach this if someone wanted to offer this camp and had a grant and wanted to use town property and insurance were an issue?
they would have to get the insurance.
So if, I'm just asking, if
That's my
Brittany had included the cost of insurance in her grant and had it, and had approached the town for use of the field to have it.
No problem. We had to demonstrate insurance.
Right, but I would think that the proper way to go would be to have that conversation before she submitted the proposal, so all the ducks were in a row.
Why I bring it up now?
Okay,
It's
I just
something
wanted
to
to be clear, because so many people have.
Yeah, no,
input. All right.
Thank you for making it
All right.
clear. So to me, that's an important thing to learn. That comes up front.
I'd also like to point out that I do not understand how two of the three select board members folded on the location being the issue, because that was my biggest sticking point with the whole thing from the get-go. We have a rec field. We have a rec field that's a safe place for children to be. There's playground equipment there, there's room for them, there's gonna be a brand new cook shack. We have picnic tables in the shade, a place where they can cook their lunch, there's porta-johns there. They wouldn't have to cross Route 4 to use the rail trail or fish in the Smith River. And I thought it was a ridiculous suggestion from the get-go to use that field there, right on Route 4, for a day camp. And I also never saw what the connection was to the library.
We have been entertaining how to help improve the community development. One of those topics, this is now many months ago, was having some kind of summer program for children in this town. There is none.
Sure.
Should it be involved with literacy?
Well, it could be involved
And
in
that's
all
what the
kinds of
library
things.
is.
Yeah.
It could be in all kinds of things, but that was our genesis,
Yeah.
right? And then Elena, thanks to Elena, who took up the issue of trying to find out how do you fund it, how would you do it, what kind of,
Sure, but this is all something that the rec committee should be doing, is holding day camps at the rec.
Well,
field,
you should
not-
talk to
it's
the rec
not-
committee then.
Yeah.
What can I tell you?
Yeah.
I mean, in lieu of nothing, we were going to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I really wasn't involved with the Elena and Brittany thing. I don't think that, it was not gonna be a Fogel event. It was gonna be a Fogel-supported event, not with funding, but physical,
Right.
volunteer. I talked with other Fogel members and said, I don't know why we would do it on the field. I said, why not the rec field where they got a playground they can play with? I agree with that. So, I mean, it wasn't a Fogel event.
I don't know why that was so important to answer your question, other than access to a bathroom with water. That was a big one. The
And we
bathroom-
all love those porta potties.
Say what?
We all love porta potties.
There, I went to day camp where we had.
What can I
all
say?
this, mean,
It's a moot
it's
point
a-
because
it's-
we're not involved.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
I don't
so
know.
did she drop that whole?
I don't know.
I
I
have
left
no
her two
idea.
messages and I don't know if she's,
Well, I would
Offended.
imagine she's looking for an alternative place.
could very well be. I told her if she could get that insurance, then there's no problem using, I believe, no problem using the town property. But uninsured, too big a risk. That's the way I understood it. And I thought I learned a lot. And one of those things I started to say was how we get we request permission to use that lot.
Mm.
And I'm remembering back to, I don't know when it was, February or something, Mary Gazarowski put out a list of all the planned events for the year. I thought that went to the select board, I guess it didn't. So, in any event, I think it's time that we should write a letter asking permission for all of those events. So we're not going back to the well on a regular basis. And then they'll know upfront, every October,
Yeah.
in this time frame, we want permission to use for all the events. And we do it once a year for all of them. And then if they don't give us permission, then we have a reason to go to the meeting and say,
What's it, what? Well, I mean, I know, Steve, I have gone to the select board and say, hey, we're gonna have a town-wide yard sale, you guys got a problem with that? I didn't do it this year, I'll admit, but I've done it in the past with different events. Maybe it was because during the COVID, I felt like, you know, but I tried to do that, but I am gonna make a point of it.
I'm not,
Well, but can I interrupt?
yeah.
The process has changed. Vogel doesn't go to the select board anymore. The trustees
We
go
go
to.
to the select board.
So we go to you and you go to the select board with
Yes.
with the thing? Okay.
Which was another reason we pushed for the MOU, so we could clarify all these rules. Who's
Their
supposed
roles
to
and
be doing what.
responsibilities.
So,
Straight.
yeah, okay.
It's
Okay.
pretty troubling that we can't get past it, but okay. So so my thought was, I'll gin up a letter, I'll ask for input. You guys will have to help me out because I don't know the time frames. They're all standard time frames.
I have all of that consideration.
Oh, excellent, good. Then I won't have to search for her email. And I think that ought to be the way we do it in the future. We ought to do it early in the year for the whole year.
Ah, absolutely. I mean, we usually do put out, you know, what we're gonna be doing all year,
So
so
what Mary did.
why can't we just pass
What
it
Mary
on?
did, so.
Yeah, but I'm a little, I have to say that I'm a little, I don't wanna call it uncomfortable, because I got no problem with handing over you guys to go there. That doesn't make me uncomfortable. I wonder where, what's the word I'm looking for? If that's appropriate, because we're not putting on a library event. We're putting on a Friends of the Grafton fundraising. Let me just finish, George, okay?
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, we're putting on a Friends of the Grafton Library event, whether it's a fundraiser or a tie-dye or stuff like that. Why would the trustees have to okay that, or, I mean, we always.
So I'll
Yeah.
give you my perception.
Good.
My perception is that the role of Fogel is to raise funds on behalf or for the purpose of the library, no matter what is done. Friends of the Grafton Library are not friends of anybody or anything, and therefore when you advertise, you're telling people, come and spend money because we're giving the money to the library. If you don't do that, it becomes fraud,
Great.
right? So
What's that got to do with the select board or you or whatever? The select board I understand because you gotta get permission to use the thing. I'm wondering what does it have to
I'm
do?
addressing the question of who you're raising the money for and what the event's for. Any event by the Friends of the Grafton Library
Maybe
are
this needs to be
connected
worked.
to the library by definition.
Yeah, and it's not just fundraising. It's
So I don't care.
recreational things.
Okay, one
Oh.
might question if that's appropriate. One might question that.
Maybe
If
that's
the
a discussion
purpose
for the
is-
MOU.
If the purpose is fundraising, and that's how the nonprofit status, on the basis that the nonprofit status was awarded, it then brings in my mind some real questions about legitimacy, so you have to be careful. So to me, by including the trustees,
Oh.
it gives it its aura of, what's the right word, of appropriate.
Cohesion or whatever, but I agree with that. What I'm saying is, we should notify the trustees and we should go to the selectmen.
No.
That's my,
No.
So I
the
disagree
the
with,
reason
I just wanna know, let you know, I disagree with that, I don't think, I mean, we're a separate nonprofit entity,
But you're
unless,
not.
But you're not,
But you're
separate.
not.
You're dependent.
If the library doesn't exist, you don't exist. If you're not working for the library, you're a fraudulent organization. You need to change your name or change your purpose, your mission
Exactly,
statement.
exactly.
George, can I just,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just gonna slip in here that I think that the trustee manual that you guys have covers a lot of this, because I'm seeing something on page 41 that says legally the Friends cannot take on any functions assigned by law to the library board of trustees. So anyways, I also see here on the role of the Friends, it says fundraising by the Friends is done with the knowledge of the trustees and in coordination with the library director as well. So I don't think they're supposed to be quite as autonomous as it begins to feel.
No, I don't see the.
yeah, but that
autonomous
didn't mean anything to me, that didn't spell out anything
Not
different than what we've been talking
No,
about.
So to me, and we're off on this topic, I didn't want to spend a lot of time.
No, I don't either.
But I will say to you that, to me, the MOU was ultimately important. My perception from the outside looking in, and having done a lot of business consulting, roles and responsibilities are completely kaflooey. One hand doesn't know what the other's doing, one speaks for the other. The notion that you're expressing to me shows this conflict of interest in not keeping clean the roles and responsibilities. So the MOU and the processes we've been describing are intended to clarify that.
That's why I said it's an MOU, to me, it's an MOU subject,
Come and gone. To me, that's come and gone, although it's now recently.
nothing's been signed.
Except for, well, this morning, that's the very nature of what came to me. That. We're a separate organization. We don't owe anything to anybody or don't need, well, it was a fundamental shift. And so we need to think about it, and I want to move on.
And I know you want to move on, I want to tail on that though, this MOU thing has been going on for a year and a half, 2 years now. I would like to see, as one of the selectmen, we have not had a discussion on this, but as just one who happens to be the liaison to the library trustees, I would like to see the library trustees cut ties until that MOU is signed. Because it seems to me that the Friends of the Grafton Library want to be the rec committee. And they meet next Tuesday, you guys can go ahead and start planning events with them. But I think that they want to be this separate entity that don't have to answer to the library trustees. The library trustees were elected by the people. Fogel was not. They shouldn't be steering this boat.
I don't see the steering of the boat. We're trying to have a mutually respectful understanding of roles and responsibilities, which I thought we were really on the doorstep of.
I thought so too, and now they've
And now-
slammed that door shut again.
And that may be for any number of reasons. So it's been my opinion, and Susan now agrees with me, that we should just let a little time go and come back to this issue. Maybe we'll have a special meeting before
Well, and
this.
I actually am thinking of this suggestion of a mediator to help us hear what each is saying and to frame the question in new ways that get us beyond the logjam that seems to have occurred.
Thank you for the thought.
To add to that, when there was a grant received by Fogel, from my understanding, some time back, and it was for a building, my understanding is, and I'm wondering, was that approved by the trustees?
But not that I'm aware of. What was done
I mean,
independently.
again, when you look at the trustee manual, it appears to me that there is not a collaboration happening. And so, and so Cindy is trying to point that out, and I can see that you want there to be,
Right.
and that you are supposed to be, you guys are supposed to be spearheading the policies, you're supposed to be spearheading any campaign, capital campaigns, but that's not the sense within the town. So I'm hopeful that you.
It's been very confusing for years,
Yeah,
and
I can
it's slowly
see you
changed.
trying, to grab hold of this, but that
Without
grant,
blowing everything
how
up.
did a grant get awarded to Fogel without the trustees seeing the grant when it is for a building for the town of Grafton, Cindy, too?
I
Since
wasn't
as a
really
selectman.
settled at the
Same
time.
thing, wouldn't it require a signature from a town official?
I would think,
And
I
yet,
mean, so you
I've
have
heard
more
that.
experience with that, but I believe
And
so.
George, I've
I
heard you
think so.
request a
Yeah.
copy of that grant at meeting after meeting after meeting, and yet, from my understanding is you still haven't seen it.
No,
Now, that's just peculiar.
it's part of this problem.
And so it just shows that when Andrew says an MOU isn't necessary, what is Andrew thinking as a trustee?
I have no idea, but now that you've disclosed that, that's why I don't wanna do anything.
Yeah.
We're missing one person who's got a completely, to
You've
me,
got-
off the wall in,
You've
I
got
don't
one
have
board
to-
member saying you don't need an MOU. You've got the Friends of Grafton, talking about different points, and you're saying one of the points isn't even something that looks like it can be resolved.
this is the very point, actually, what we're discussing right now. That to me was the big sticking point in what I got this morning. We can raise money, we're a separate organization, well, separate but dependent,
And I think
and that's not understood.
I think Cindy's suggestion that there needs to perhaps be a little bit of a, I understand putting some time here, but also then saying we need to also stop fundraising activities during that period as well. Because right now you don't have any policy in place, you don't have any signed agreement. And yet they continue to raise funds. And I'm not even sure if I understand, is there a separation of their capital? When they're saying that they're raising money for a building, is that separated as it should be from their funds when they're raising?
I don't have insight into
We
their
don't even
accounting.
know that.
I don't have insight. Yes, ma'am.
So, first of all, the trustees in November 2019 signed off on the barn structure. And they signed off on that's the way we need to go. So, and they also agreed that Fogel would be the fundraising arm for a new library. So that's a trustee decision. Number two, Recreation Committee, we tried to involve ourselves with the Recreation Committee. We tried to join with them and invited them to do events together, and they didn't, they wouldn't. We've done things with the Ladies Benevolent Society, we've done things with the Historical Society. Recreation Committee did not want to partake and didn't want to do a joint effort. We were open to doing things with the fire department.
But can I?
No, I need
stop
to.
this? We're drifting way away from.
No, Cindy said you need to cut ties because we're not doing what you said, and we want to be a recreation committee. Well then, I guess you need to come to a Fogel and say that.
We are the.
You need to come to a Fogel meeting and say that because
Please.
libraries are no
Stop this
longer just
conversation.
books.
So we'll move on now to Strategic Planning Committee. Would you like to give a short update, Susan, on where we are? And then we have one other important topic.
Okay, brief update is that we had our second meeting following the kickoff that happened 3 months ago on June 12th, last Saturday, and reviewed the information that's been gathered thus far, including preliminary analysis of the survey results, the findings from interviews that have been done with school representatives, with the select board, and with other folks, which I can name. We reviewed that, and we reviewed the research that I've done over the last couple months into trends in rural libraries, best practices, and what the American Library Association is promoting as best practices. So we reviewed those things at the meeting, began to think about whether we wanted to refresh the mission statement and what that might include, what our vision for what we feel the library should look like in 5 years, what should it be offering, who should it be serving, what should its programming be like. We just began that brainstorming, and then we set our final 3 meetings that will see us through this process and hopefully to a plan that will serve us well. So that's my update.
At the selectmen's meeting, Cindy stated that they felt there was a fair percentage of those that were submitted from out-of-towners. Is that true, or do you know a percentage of, were they all residents, or?
I said there were a couple, yeah.
Well, you said you didn't know how many.
Okay, I asked, there was a question, how long have you lived in Grafton? And I think one of the options was, don't live in Grafton, there may be 2 out of 117.
Okay, because
So,
that wasn't
and
clear.
you know, I can't tell
Okay.
you, should you trust what you thought, but
Okay,
I.
2 out of 10.
This
Two
is,
non-resident.
these are the results that I saw.
Okay, great, thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Well, that actually leads me to something else that I thought we had agreed in the first Library Strategic Planning Committee meeting, that those surveys would be brought to the next meeting for us to see. And this is by no means to criticize you or to say I don't trust you, but you've lived in this town for
2 years.
2 years. So I'm wondering if names were on them, whose names they were, if we know that they were people who actually live in this town. And
I'll tell you what I could do, because we did promise people, or we did state in the survey tool that we only were asking for names to prevent duplication.
right,
So I can give, I think it wouldn't be,
Proper.
it wouldn't be problematic to give a list of names of who responded, as long as it were separate from the responses, and you could say, people who've lived here, that person doesn't live here. And that only
how is
one
how is
person
it-
didn't give a name.
how is, well, I guess I don't understand why we're members of the committee, but this information is shielded from us, but not.
What, the information as to who? Well, that was a question we addressed early on. We had first thought, and I did get some feedback of this sort, that people wouldn't be forthcoming
Certainly.
unless it
And I
were
would
there were
imagine those-
confidentiality. And you said that you had a problem with that, and so this, and I respected that opinion. So I thought we had consensus around asking for names, but separating those names from the results.
Yeah.
We use the names
wasn't
only
enough.
to prevent
Yep.
duplication. And I don't think it would be a problem to say who responded, as long as we weren't identifying
What they said.
what they said.
And beyond that, I thought we would actually have the physical survey sitting there when we met. In looking at what you had sent us, there were some people who, the open-ended questions, they responded with things such as, I don't know, I don't live in Grafton. We had talked during the meeting Saturday about, well, it'd be nice to know how many of these people were those people, and how many of these people were of this age group.
Right.
So without us seeing that, without us being able to physically see that, I'd like to know, and I'm not saying I don't trust you, it's just you sent us these open-ended questions in a list form.
Right.
There's 117 people responded. Well, there's 115 of this one, there's 94 of this question.
Well, some people
And,
didn't
right,
answer.
right. And that's where I'm looking at it and I'm trying to figure out, okay, so this person who said, I don't know, I don't live in Grafton, which are there other answers that we can immediately cross off that we don't care what they had to say about our library and our town?
I can do that.
That's.
I can remove those answers.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I'm going back on what we promised to respondents, or said that we would do to protect their confidentiality. If I revealed the names with the answers to the committee, so.
I feel very strongly about that.
Okay.
And when I hear the number 1 or the number 2 out of 117, I don't see how that changes the results. If there were 30 out of 117, then I go, maybe we have some jaundiced results.
But
We
it's-
need to do what you just said. But we don't have that.
But it's 117 out of 1,300, and how many people live
We
in
have
town?
850 voters on the checklist.
Well,
On the
that's
checklist,
voters, that's not the reg.
Right.
No,
I
we
understand,
have,
but
we
it's
have
a
about
census.
1,300 people,
1,300 and some.
290 or so children, only 2 children
Right.
filled out. So we'd have a more than 10% sample, which for surveys is considered good. So, but, and it's surveys, so you bring a grain of salt to your interpretation of the results. You can't make more of them than it allows. It's just input.
Were those surveys?
Gretchen, I don't know how long have you had your hand up, a while?
I don't know, Gretchen, go ahead.
Gretchen,
Well, glad Cindy has brought this forward because I have concerns that the study committee is not following the right to know law.
could we stop and hold that one?
Sure.
That's on the list.
It's on the list.
Next.
I'm just wondering, out of those surveys, I don't think there was a direct mailing, so not every resident was able to have a chance to do the survey. And so I'm wondering, how many of those were well, I guess you probably wouldn't know, but it seems odd that you would even want any from out of town. Why would we have any surveys from people that didn't live in the town?
Grafton can serve people from also, the library can serve people from Enfield and Canaan and Orange and Dorchester.
But wouldn't the stakeholders be the ones you were surveying, which would be the
Yes, and I
taxpayers?
do agree with you, but as I said, I can remove those two that said I don't live in, or one of them said I no longer live in Grafton. I can remove those and rerun.
Are you going to be doing further surveys? Because
Pardon me?
if you're doing further surveys, it seems like it might be worthwhile to make sure that, all the stakeholders at least get an opportunity.
Well, can I just say how it was done, which was not perfect,
Yeah.
but it wasn't perfect, and it's not as though we have funded or, brought in a survey. I'm a volunteer who's done this. I know how to do surveys. I know how to evaluate them. And there are problems with this, but we did what we could with the resources we had. We distributed them to the library listserv on the Friends of Grafton website, Facebook page, and on the library Facebook page. And we put boxes at the town offices, the post office, and the library with paper copies in a Dropbox. So that's how we did it. We didn't mail them out. They were a survey was mailed out in 2017 and only got
That's what I was
40 replies, and they
Yeah.
were offering a raffle for it. So I looked at that and I said, well, that didn't work very well, did it? Let's try a different way. And as for further surveys, the town is certainly free to do it. I'm not going to volunteer to do another big survey as part of this process, but more power to you if you want to do one.
These are the kind of processes that can always be improved,
Of course.
right? Is there any other comment for Susan? And then I want to bring it to the last topic that I have under strategic planning, and that's a concern for the process that was brought to my attention by Cindy Cutlock.
Okay, let me
But
get
I
back
guess
to
you're
taking notes. I
coming
want
to
to
that.
capture what's just happened as best I can.
Or I'd like to go back to the survey and respond to what Susan
Okay.
just said.
Okay.
Is that I have talked with other people who have done surveys, and 10% is not a good number if you're just the way it's been distributed, because you're only contacting people who are in the know. So you've either got the people who are in favor, or you've got the people who are opposed. I know personally people on both sides who completed multiple surveys. The best way of using that 10% figure is if the library, and why the library trustees didn't do it, was a direct mailing to the households. If you got 10% back from that direct mailing, that would be something significant. But the way it was done, it doesn't really mean anything.
Any other comments? Then let's move on to the,
I'm putting it in.
put it down. About the process concern. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I was approached by a couple of people in town that they were concerned that we were not properly following the right to know law with the process we're using for the strategic planning committee. In that, the first question was how did the survey questions, who decided what the questions were going to be and how that was going to come to be? And I said, well, we were emailing back and forth. Here's, what do you think of these? What do you think of those? And we were making a decision. And I said, I thought that we were okay because the decision was made in the public meeting and in the minutes that, yes, we will do a survey. And Susan will send out sample questions and we'll whittle it down and they agree via email. And apparently that wasn't good, that wasn't, there's still questions as to whether or not that followed the right to know law properly. And then going forward, we had talked about now doing the mission statement the same way, pretty much, and the vision statement the same way. So my thoughts on it were, and I didn't go ask the NHMA, which anyone who wants to, feel free, go ahead, but my thoughts on it are that if we make a decision that we're going to do a survey in the meeting, it's in the minutes, and we're just gonna hash out the details via email, rather than have 47 little meetings or, you know, a 2-day meeting, I don't personally feel like we violated the right to know law in doing that. I think if there's anything we could potentially improve on, is perhaps maybe then the next meeting, make it a point to say. So we said at the last meeting, we all agreed to do this, we hashed out the details over email, and this is the final result. I think that would cover our butts, but.
Now, how would that cover our butts? What are you proposing?
Because, so you come back to the next meeting and say, you know,
What did you do offline?
this, yeah, what was decided, what was decided since the last meeting via email that we had said we were gonna.
If publicly, at the public meeting, we
Yes.
described the activity that had occurred
Thank you.
between meetings and were transparent about that,
Yes,
then, that's no problem.
Right.
that's my thoughts on
This
We
it.
is
could even
state-
print out email chains, right? I mean.
We could, but
To
good
be
God, you don't
I
really.
mean, at some point.
Yeah, really.
It was on that basis that I felt comfortable. It's no different than the comments we've hashed out on the MOU. The detailed conversations of what words to use has happened over email.
Right,
It just happens that today we got what I call a bombshell, right? But we were ready to, I thought, we were going to be signing a document.
yeah, yeah.
And that's the same problem. Every word wasn't discussed in public. Somewhere along the line, you have to do a job done. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I don't agree with Cindy. I do believe that the right to know law has been violated. Because your communication, even in email, that's a meeting. And all that information needs to be provided to the public. If you're going to have a meeting via email, because you've got all the trustees who are involved, that's a quorum. That the public has to be able to have access to that and be able to participate the way it should be done. I mean, the organizing meeting that the trustees had, I contacted 2 trustee members and asked what was going to take place at that meeting in March. I was told it was just going to be an organizing meeting, there was going to be no decisions made, and that while somebody from the public could attend, they couldn't participate. That's what it was going to be. Find out afterwards that the public who attended did participate, and that decisions were made. You know, you had a committee that was formed, you talked about the surveys, but you didn't say, you know, I mean, there was just roughly the surveys were going to be out and, you know, perhaps some time. I feel that the board trying to expedite the process is not being transparent to the public.
Well,
Let me finish, you know, so you had your emails going back and forth. If you had come back at your next library trustee meeting and you said, this is what we decided, this is the survey, this is the final draft that we're going to distribute at a public meeting, it would have given me an opportunity, George, to sit there and say, listen, I have problems with this, or how come you're not sending this out in the mail? You didn't give the public an opportunity to participate in that.
So Gretchen, we've just heard a process improvement suggestion that sounds just like what you just said. So what Cindy said is
No, it isn't.
after
It
a
isn't.
meeting.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
Well, at some level, I'll have to say, the burden is just too great. If we have to have a public meeting for every word that's discussed and every comment and every consideration, then we're never gonna get any job done. And it's true.
Well,
We have lives, we're
But
volunteers.
the
We have lives.
We're
We can't spend
volunteers.
every minute of our lives.
But
in
the
the
statute reads, any
I've
kind
spent
of
2 days
electronic communication that's going, be an exchange between board members and committees has to be available to the public. So either you're gonna have to print it all out,
Wait a
all
minute,
the stuff that has been
wait a minute,
decided
whoa,
has
whoa,
to be
whoa, whoa.
hard copy.
The only thing we have to publicize are decisions. We can exchange information freely. Isn't that correct, Steve? We can go to parties, we can be at
But
events.
that's something
You
different.
can't
That's
deliberate
something
or
different.
make decisions.
Right.
You cannot make
You
decisions.
cannot make decisions, but you made decisions. You made
You
a
made
decision that for the final draft of the survey, you made a
So
decision
what would
to
you have us
distribute
do?
it.
Should we abandon the project?
No, I'm saying that you need to come back to a meeting like this and say, this is what we decided in between, and this is what we're going to do.
Do you understand what we were having to do? I
Am
hear
I,
you.
You can't take action. You know,
I'm getting the impression that had we had another meeting after we hatched out the survey, before it went live, before it went out, that would have sufficed to say this is what we decided and this is what it's gonna be. So going forward, we can't change past. It is what it is. We did it, we screwed up,
Yeah, I
sorry.
mean, what's the resolution?
bad.
Should we just
So-
abandon it?
Going forward, as what I just said about doing the mission statement and the vision statement, this is our same,
Right,
you were there.
right.
We're talking about doing the same thing with the mission statement and the vision statement, hashing it out via email. We'll come back to the next meeting and say, this is what the consensus was, or this is what we decided. That would,
Right,
That
that
would
would
be
be, right, no,
That
right,
sounds
right.
awful for me.
because otherwise, we're just gonna have to rent a hotel for the rest of the summer and just spend the rest of it with each other till we get it all worked out.
Well, you know, and find a
We'll
new
be
place to
over.
live in, 'cause I'm not doing this.
All right.
Yeah,
You know, we're doing this for free.
right?
And Gretchen's invited.
You can run it. We'll make you accountable. You'll be in charge.
Well, that's
So
what we all need.
that's the issue that came up. Is there any more discussion about this? Thank you for some constructive thoughts. Next meeting,
Just trying to
that
catch
week
you.
is July. Didn't write down that date. It's similar to the meeting date,
No, yeah.
July
So they
17th
did.
or something like that. Yeah, is our next strategic plan?
I can tell you, just let me pull
Yeah,
up the.
no,
But your
time.
next meeting is the 24th because it's my birthday, so
I
the
can-
strategy.
Oh, 24, that's right.
That's the strategy meeting.
It's July 24,
Did you hear
August
that?
28.
And Gretchen is
December
moving.
28.
Okay.
Let me point out,
Candles to the light.
excuse me, let me point out that the next meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee is the 24th of July. That
10
means,
a.m. to noon at Town Hall.
but that means that the report you're looking for isn't going to happen until July, August something.
No, you meet again in July.
No, we meet before the 24th.
Oh, you meet before the 24th. Well, that's.
The library
right,
trustees
right.
meet the 15th.
Okay,
Strategic planning
so
meeting
to
24th.
get what you want means nothing can go forward, nothing can happen until we
It's just a mission
communicate.
statement and the others, so
Whatever,
it's
but
what's,
nothing can go forward until we review this in a
or you
public
can have another
session.
meeting, George.
I'm not having yet another. I've
I-
donated
okay,
enough of
so-
my personal time.
I understand that any action you take should be presented at a public meeting for there to be comment before action is taken. Okay, I got that. Is that the simple way of
I
putting
think
it?
That's
so.
a-
Very
yeah.
concise.
So I've got that. I have to raise, I'm sorry, I know you want to move on to the other
No, we're
question.
almost
Because we
done.
did make a decision, not in bad faith, because I was not thinking, how am I abiding by or not the public right to know law.
Right,
I'm just
absolutely.
trying to be helpful, okay? But we did decide, because I know in the nonprofit world, which is entirely my experience, not the public realm at all, I just want to make that very clear, that it's important to decide on your decision-making process at the beginning of a process, like how will this plan be adopted? And we decided that the committee, which is comprised of 5 elected officials,
Yeah.
2 community folks, and me as a non-voting facilitator, that we would approve and adopt the plan, allowing 1 dissenting vote only. Meaning, if there were 2 dissenting votes, we wouldn't adopt it. But my question to you is that a kosher way to make a decision about the plan, if the public is present at meetings and can comment on the decisions and consensus that we're developing along the way? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but.
Because I don't want to get to the end of the process
but
and
if I-
find that it needs to be voted on by the entire town or some such thing. I'm just being flip.
No, I know.
Erase
I
that. Erase that. And I'm trying to totally hear, and see how we do this right without tying ourselves in knots, and it seems like there's a way.
It seems like there's a
Well, frequently I have to tell new select boards and other people that this is a legislative body. It is not a business. And things are done differently and have to be done differently. And that's why there's state statutes in place to make certain that you have transparency.
All right, but what I'm trying to say is you have elected officials to do the work of the library, to lead the library, and I would think they would be empowered to make a decision about a
But you did the
strategic plan for
decision,
the library.
Susan, over email. You didn't do it at a meeting.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about.
She's saying there was
final-
5 of us there that should have known better than
Oh,
her. It's not her fault.
What I'm trying to get clear.
I'll take the lead for it. I'm one of
Can
them,
I
absolutely.
state something here? I'm not interested in putting a lot of work into leading a process that then founders the way the MOU has. So I want to understand if the process that we laid out at that first meeting, which should have been, our intent should have been stated, we should have gotten comment and then proceeded with that, I understand that we would adopt the plan